guys, it's Hillary, and this video will be a little bit about cerebral palsy since it is March, which is Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, and I will be explaining a little bit about the disorder and answering some questions that may help you to understand how I live with this disorder. So I'm going to start off by just giving hopefully a brief explanation of cerebral palsy and the type of cerebral palsy that I have. Let's see. To start off, I'm just going to give you a little explanation. Cerebral palsy is a movement and muscle disorder. The most common type of cerebral palsy is spastic cerebral palsy, which means that your muscles just get really tight and it's hard for them to get stretched out so that you can move well and do what you need to do. There are 4 different types of spastic cerebral palsy, and each type of spastic cerebral palsy affects different parts of the body. I have paraplegia cerebral palsy, which means that both of my legs are affected, and it makes it hard for me to move, again because those muscles in the legs get really tight and you have to constantly keep them stretched out. And now I'm going to answer about 9 questions that help explain a little bit more about the disorder and how I live with it. Our first question is, how did you get cerebral palsy? I was born with cerebral palsy, and I was born at 26 weeks. I was born early, not quite the recommended 40 weeks that's supposed to happen when you have a kid, but that's okay. Like I said before, it makes me unique and just presents me with a few more challenges that I have to overcome. And our next question is, how did you feel about it growing up? Well, that's kind of an interesting question because growing up, I didn't really notice it, especially when I was younger. I mean, I knew in the back of my mind that I had all these extra things that I did, like physical therapy and wearing braces and the wheelchair and the walker and all these pieces of equipment, but until I reached like the end of middle school, beginning of high school, I didn't realize that this wasn't something that was going to go away. So it didn't really affect my childhood, I guess, that much that I am aware of. I'm sure my mom could tell you that it affected her quite a bit, but I wasn't really affected until, like I said, high school. That's when I really noticed that it wasn't going to go away or change, and I had to think about, okay, I've got to start paying attention to my body and figuring out how to navigate this crazy world that we live in. How has cerebral palsy affected your life in both good and bad ways? That really just depends on the day. On the really good days, I would say I'm a motivated person and I can get done what I need to do within my disorder, or my abilities, I should say. I will not say limitations because I am not limited by any means. I just have to rethink things and maybe give myself a little bit extra time to figure something out. But I can pretty much do anything, so I'm not limited in any way. Let's see. Do you ever think about life without cerebral palsy? There was a period of time in my life where when I was first figuring things out and I really started to notice the fact that I was different and notice that this wasn't something that I could just snap my fingers and make myself like everybody else, there was a period of time where I would spend quite a lot of time thinking about what life would be like if it were different, what high school would be like, what, life after high school would be like, what a first job would be like. So I did a lot of that as I was in high school, kind of first starting to really, really pay attention to this and deal with it. How was schooling with cerebral palsy? Well, it was challenging, but and is challenging because technically I'm not done. I am currently in college trying to earn my associate's degree, and so I've had to navigate different things. I've had different scenarios that I've had to figure out, and one of the things that I would say has been important for me to do is just continually speak up and say, these are the things that I will need. Like when I first arrived here at college, there were not a lot of modifications, at least where I needed them, so that I could get through this part of my life as independently as possible. So I had to go to staff members and say, is this something we could do, or could we rethink how this is arranged so that maybe I could be a little bit more independent and do more for myself. And the staff members here have gone above and beyond to make sure that I can be as independent as possible while on campus. How has your disability changed throughout your life? Well, I don't know that it's really changed. I would say that I can get weaker or stronger depending on the work I do with my muscles. I've always had the same amount of ability. Like I said, I'm not going to magically one day just be able to get up and walk. It's not going to work that way, which is fine with me. But as I was growing up, I was working with a physical therapist and was able to get stronger and use devices like braces and a walker and crutches to just be able to get around so that I wasn't constantly in the chair all the time. Right now, I would say I wouldn't want to use the word regressed, but I have kind of, I'm in the chair a little bit more than I would prefer to be, but just because college life is a little bit hard and the campus is big. It's not as big as some places, but it is big, so it's a little bit more challenging to get around. So I'm in the chair quite a bit, but I'm building back up that strength, and hopefully one day I'll be back on those crutches and just zooming around all over the place. How will things change for people with disabilities? Well, that's a good question. That just depends on the advancements that are made. I can't really say for certain what will change. I guess the only way I can make changes is by making people aware and saying, these are the things that I can do, these are the things that at the moment I can't do. I'm not going to say, we'll never be able to do, because I don't know what the future will hold. And so I would just say for me, the key thing is, like I said earlier, just speaking up and making people aware so that changes can be made. Question number 9. Do you believe in God? Does that help you deal with having cerebral palsy? Yes, I do believe in God, and yes, it does help me deal with having cerebral palsy. I'm not gonna lie, there was a dark period in my life where I spent a lot of years questioning God and saying, what is this you've done, and why do I deserve this, or why did you do this to me? What did I do that was so wrong? And it took quite a long time for me to realize that maybe my circumstances are meant to help somebody else get through something, help somebody else realize that their circumstances may be challenging, but they can get through them as well. I don't know why these are my circumstances, and I probably will never know unless, God decides I'm going to tell you, and He hasn't done that yet, so I'm not going to assume that it will happen, but I'm not going to say that it won't either, because God can do anything He wants. But I don't believe that He made a mistake when it came to me. I'm supposed to be this way. I'm supposed to use what gifts I have, because I am gifted. We all are in one way or another, but I'm supposed to use what I have and the abilities I have to encourage somebody else, and hopefully this video and many other things I do throughout my life will do that. If there were a pill for a cure for cerebral palsy, would you take it? No, I wouldn't. Like I said earlier, God doesn't make mistakes. He did not make a mistake with me. This is the way things are supposed to be. And hopefully someone is encouraged by this, and I wouldn't want to turn around and change God's plan and say, you were wrong. I may have done that when I was younger because I didn't understand, but God knows way more than I do, and is going to use this in an amazing and positive way. So no, if there were a pill invented for a cure, I would not take it. Hopefully this has given you a better insight into cerebral palsy and what it is, and given you a better understanding of me as a person, and hopefully now you will remember this and begin to maybe think and ask yourself some questions, and get motivated to know more and learn more and teach somebody else and pass it along. Thanks for watching, guys.